Hello and welcome to our AmeriCorps VISTA member webinar titled The Power of Telling Your VISTA Story. My name is Chris Hawks. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer or RPCV who's serving in Belize from 2010 to 12. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Tamika Eatman. Hi, Tamika.
Hello. Thank you, Chris. My name is Tamika Eman, as Chris mentioned, and I'm a training specialist with the AmeriCorps VISTA. And I'm an AmeriCorps alum who served 20 plus years ago as an AmeriCorps Promise Fellow. So, Chris, you ready to get started?
Ace, thanks, Tamika. So looking at our discussion items for today, we hope that this webinar will help you to be able to define the key elements of a well-structured story, describe your AmeriCorps Vista service in a concise and compelling way, adapt your service story to different audiences and delivery methods, and finally, identify opportunities to infuse storytelling into your Vista service tasks and assignments. Uh, Again, towards the end of the webinar, we'll also give you an opportunity to share your story in a breakout room with other VISTA members. Just be for a few moments, but we want to get you that opportunity, and we hope it's a good opportunity for you to practice your skills on the storytelling, and also to connect with other VISTA members across the country. So again, we'll share our session materials again in the chat. Yes, thanks, Tara. We'll also send these out afterwards. But please, if you're able to access the handout at your earliest convenience. And I also want to note that the purpose of this session is to learn how to create powerful stories to support the work you are doing in your VISTA project and ultimately the work of your organization. So maybe you use stories, you could use them all the time, possibly, to help your VISTA project, or maybe you're just kind of getting started with your service and have not had a chance to really tell or formulate your story. So to get us started, we're actually gonna think about why stories can be beneficial to our work. So we have a chat question here right off the bat, and we want to ask, why does sharing stories benefit your Vista project, or why will sharing stories benefit your Vista project? So if you could just share in the chat, and we'll take a look at a few of the responses. Probably won't spend a ton of time here, but just want to see get a feel for why you feel sharing stories could benefit your Vista project. And we'll give it a second. I believe it's going to default to everyone when you send your response, but if not, you may have to toggle the response. So yeah, starting to see some come in. Stephonia, help encourage you and strengthen your mindset on making an impact. That's a good why, absolutely. Could hopefully reach someone who does not know the services we offer. Yes, it's just a different way of advertising services, right? Good response, Aletia. Sharing your testimony can help not only build community in the office, but it can help create trust and security with the people of the community that I will be engaging with. Yes, Jennifer, it does. It does. You know, if you have a story and you can relate and empathize, it does kind of provide a more trust. I agree with that, Jennifer. People like hearing stories that are memorable. Yes, Will, love it. Este beneficio para dar a conocer el programa de voluntarios para reclutarlos to recruit volunteers. It's a benefit to know the program. Yes, yes, Apollonia. And it shows the impact and ripple effects of what we're doing. So these, I know they're coming in fast now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, y'all are definitely addressing some whys. And thanks. Keep those responses coming. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Tamika to see if we can kind of explore this why question further.
Okay. Well, thank you all for sharing your thoughts on how stories can have an impact on your projects, whether it's promoting your projects or different stories of the individuals that you serve, or increasing the number of people who are engaging with the organizations that you're serving. As Vistas, your mission is to fight poverty, and stories are a great tool to help motivate others to join us in this fight. Thinking back to our first question today and how you were motivated to take action, you were likely moved to do something because of a story. you heard or were told. That's what we hope to create today. As a VISTA member, there are many opportunities to share stories to support your service. We're going to launch a quick poll about when you ask people to take action at your VISTA project site. So let's go ahead and look at that poll. At your project site, when do you ask people to take action? Is it A, in a volunteer appeal? B, when building partnerships, or D, something else? And so you can select as many of these as you like, any and all. And if you do answer D, something else, please, write what that is in the chat. So I see, quite a few of you have, half of you have responded at this point. So getting some good responses here. It looks like the leader right now is building partnerships, but continue to put that in. So when you're trying to recruit volunteers, looks like possibly for something else. So we can go ahead for educational events to, I guess, when people learn about things in their community, it's great to combine it with a way to get involved and take action. Yes, yes. So for them to get involved in a different way. And so that's kind of part of that. So we'll go ahead and close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So it looks like the majority of you are using it basically to take action to share partnerships, but it's around a little over 50% in terms of the volunteer appeal and the donations. And then several of you also use it for something else as well. So excellent, you all. We use stories all the time, to build connections with others and advance the mission of our organization. Some important opportunities when you can share your story, like several of you mentioned, would be in a volunteer appeal, whether that's to increase participation for certain special events or just for you with your long-term volunteers when asking for donations, whether it be for special campaigns or for different programs and projects, when building partnerships, as majority of you expressed, when asking people to spread the word about something, to grow memberships, to improve click-throughs, whether that be with newsletters or on social media, help donors understand a new problem that your agency may be facing, or maybe the community is facing, and inspire loyalty and trust. And we know trust is so key when getting ready to make an ask, to have that trust that's there. So we've talked about the why and the when we share our stories. Now let's talk about how. We'd love to hear from you again. So at your site, how do you share stories about your VISTA service with others? So just please let us know by sharing in the chat. Like, how do you share your stories? Is it more verbally or in writing? And what kind of ways do you share your stories? I'm curious to hear. Is it during possibly presentations? Oh, I'm seeing one-on-one. One-on-one pops up there twice. Yeah, so a lot of times we have that moment, that opportunity to share with an individual, whether it be a volunteer opportunity or recruit, whatever it may be, one-on-one. And check-in meetings, presentations, quarterly reports. Yes, having to work on that reporting and having that. Some of you social media and marketing. Then just that one-on-one, trying to find the best way to talk to people. Several of you looks like that you're doing different newsletters, different social media, and different reportings. Also kind of sharing stories within pictures. So that's also interesting, something we'll talk a little bit more about. In terms of the format, you might share your story in writing, such as in a social media post, a blog post, which several of you expressed, in a press release, or your organization's newsletter. Or you might share your story verbally, which several of you shared in the chat, either in a one-on-one conversation, video, or presenting to a group. And that group can sometimes be a small group, just a couple of folks, to a large group where we're looking at 50 or plus. So when as you think about the an opportunity to use storytelling in your work, the length of your story and what you might convey may change depending on the most appropriate format. As you see on this slide, the length, number of words of your story may vary greatly depending on if you're sharing a service story, say during a presentation, in comparison to the story you share within your resume. On the screen, you'll see some different formats. For example, if you're presenting at a conference or to a group of community members, you'll need something longer than a social media post and might opt for a 5-minute story. I know during my service term and throughout my professional career, when I'm getting ready to present information to a group, I'll often ask, how much time do I have to share with them? And times sometimes vary from 5 to 10 minutes up to 30 minutes or longer. And that, of course, shapes how I develop my story, right? If you're going to share a written story in a newsletter or a press release, the length might even be different with that as well. And if you're just chatting with someone one on one, such as a potential volunteer, what you say and how long you say it will change. Of course, depending on the type of conversation you're having, and also along with deciding on what motivates the individual that you're talking with and what appeals to those group of individuals. A good story is adaptable for different contexts, but a good story always has a basic structure. Today, we're going to share a basic story structure that you can adapt to any of these lengths and formats. We'll talk about this story structure in just a minute, but want to ask you to do something first. So let's take a moment to open up the session handout. We'll share it in the chat again. It was also emailed out to you. If you're having any technical difficulties, the questions are also on the screen and you can refer back to this later. During our time today, we're going to provide some time for you to practice crafting a story to support one of these opportunities to motivate others to action. Right now, take a minute or two to review the worksheet and identify what type of story you want to work on today and what purpose. So take a minute or so to review the first page of the worksheet and complete the first 3 questions also that we have up here on the slide. We're going to play a little bit of music here while you take some time to think about that and answer those questions. Okay. All right. So thank you for taking time to think about this and these questions. Chris, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Tamika. And thanks everyone for taking that time to kind of craft your Vista story. We certainly realize that 1 to 2 minutes of time is certainly not enough time to fully develop your thoughts for all three questions, but hopefully gave you an idea and really just kind of a good place to start. So what we want to do, we have three poll questions about to pop up on your screen, and these are about what your story is about. So what you were just doing during to, crafting during Tamika's slide just before this. We want to know what your story is about, how you plan to share it, and what type of story you will get started. So the poll should pop up, and we want to just respond to the poll questions you see on the screen. You'll likely have to scroll down to see all three questions. So please make sure you do that and click submit. If your answer is other, please feel free to share further details in the chat. I'll pause for a second while everyone gets a chance to respond here, and we'll give it about 15 seconds or so. Okay, looks like almost half have responded. Yes, thanks, Christina. Yes, you may need to scroll down to view all questions. There are three total. Let's see what kind of story you're gonna be working on. Okay, almost two-thirds have responded. We'll give it another 5 seconds just to make sure. If you're close to submitting, you are officially on countdown with a drum roll. And all right, I saw a couple come in. Nice. Okay, let's let us close it out, and thank you so much, all of you, for sharing. Just looking at this, it's very interesting. Okay, building partnerships. So that aligns with the earlier poll too, that Tamika shared. But you still see some, 20%, 1/5 making a volunteer appeal, less so, 10% for asking for a donation, and then several others as well. But building those partnerships makes complete sense in terms of storytelling. That absolutely makes sense. Number two, kind of scrolling down, looks like one-on-one definitely is three-quarters selected one-on-one, and then also social media posts and presenting to a group. Less so on the press release and newsletters. That makes sense. And then which type of story format will you start today? Many are starting a 5-minute service story. Also have the 30-second elevator pitch and a social media post rounding things out. So that sounds great. Um, Thank you so much for sharing. It looks like there's a good diversity here in the ways in which you're all working to tell the story of your work and to get people to take action. So again, today you may not have enough time to finish a 5-minute service story or written article. For those of you who selected a 5-minute story, we totally get it. May not be enough time today, but we hope you will leave the session with a strong foundation, to continue building and refining your story. So now that we have talked about different ways and mediums in which stories can be conveyed, let's now talk about the structure that stories typically take. So first off, all stories include a moment. This is where you introduce the characters, so the organization, the community members or volunteers, etc. You describe the setting or the community you are serving and the larger mission of your organization and work. To draw the listener in, it can be helpful to share through your senses. So try describing what the scene looks like, feels like, sounds like, and even taste or smells like. People connect deeply when they can truly visualize what it is you are describing. Second, a compelling story will also have a conflict or a challenge. This is a specific problem or set of problems faced by the organization, the community, or the person or group of people or volunteers, etc. And this can be conveyed in a few different ways. So could be by data, visuals, general descriptions, and more. So what is the challenge that your VISTA project faces? Or if it's not your project, what's the challenge that you face when completing your VAT assignments? Because sometimes that could be a little bit different from the challenge that your project as a whole faces. And then finally, the story should contain an outcome. This is the change you are hoping to make, and how can the audience join you in making that change by contributing, time, money, or resources to your goal. It's important as we talk about storytelling that we make one important note as well. Now, the work that you and other vistas do across the country is so challenging, and project sites work with people facing some of their toughest moments in life. So when you share a story, you are representing Vista as well as your project site and the communities you serve. And it's important that when we share a personal story, that it is personal to us. We should not share the stories of others without their permission. We call this ethical storytelling, and it is, an important note to remember. So let's see some examples of the story arc in action. We are about to hear a Vista member, Justine, who some of you may have heard on our Vista member orientation webinar. We're going to hear her story again. And as you listen to Justine's story, please feel free to share in the chat what you see her doing well as she tells her story.
My role as an AmeriCorps VISTA member at Waipahu High School is to increase our participation in early college or other college opportunities by our underrepresented populations, which include Pacific Islanders, Native Hawaiians, English language learners, and other underrepresented populations. So the challenges that some of these populations experience is that they don't have information about how to pursue early college or college opportunities. So my position is kind of encouraging them, introducing the different resources available to them, and actually working one-on-one to help them apply for early college and other college opportunities. I am from Waipahu and I did attend Waipahu High School, so I've been giving back to my community in this way.
Okay, thanks for watching. And if you haven't done so, and if you're mid-typing, feel free to share in the chat what you heard was successful in Justine's story. But we'll also take a look at it here. Well, let's break down the structure she used just there. So the moment the video focuses on describes Justine choosing to become a VISTA member in her home community at Waipahu High School. Then you hear about a challenge. Not enough information is available for students about early college and college opportunities for underrepresented communities at the school. Then the outcome of the story is that Justine works to increase the exposure, the number of applicants, and the participation in early college opportunities. We can imagine Justine continuing her story, maybe with an ask afterwards to help volunteer for her program, or an ask to donate for supplies she may need or maybe to partner on an upcoming event. So many of you selected building partnerships as an aspect of where storytelling can help. Now, because Justine has thoughtfully and effectively shared her story, we can imagine her audience feeling compelled to take action and join her in this important project. So thanks for going through that video and Justine's story, and I'll pass it to Tamika to look at another example.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Chris. So a story is not just spoken words. Some of us are very visual. For some VISTA projects, you may need to tell stories through written or other formats to increase engagement. So let's look at an infographic here from the nonprofit No Kid Hungry. And some of you may be familiar with designing infographics, so feel free to share in the chat any of the software that you like to use when creating a story in this type of format, such as an infographic. I know some people like to use Canva, and I put in, thanks, Leah, yeah, Canva. And also I put in something, if you have Microsoft Office, then there's different templates there as well. But let's go back to looking at the No Kids Hungry example. We've it into sections to show how it uses the story framework we are learning today. In a short amount of space at the top of the infographic, the audience is introduced to an issue, why that issue is important, and how they can get involved. The graphic starts out with a moment, or setting the stage by introducing the key characters in this story, and in this case, it's kids eating breakfast at school. Okay, very quickly, they emphasize the challenge, which is that too many kids are showing up to school hungry and don't have access to breakfast. They make it clear that this is a problem because hungry kids cannot learn. And finally, the graphic explains that breakfast can change the lives of kids in America. And early in the graphic, we saw part of that change was better attendance in school and higher math scores. So when looking at the outcome and thinking about how can the audience join you, there is a call to action. Learn how you can help. And within the graphic, there we see a donation link shared. And so, kind of going back to look at that full infographic, again, we see that all the pieces, the moment, the challenge, and outcome come together. I hope this was a helpful example in addition to Justine's video that Chris shared. And we hope they're helpful to think about as you work on crafting your own VISTA story. Chris?
Thanks, Tamika. So now that you've heard a couple of examples, we had the infographic from No Kids Hungry and Justine's video. Let's transition into giving you an opportunity to write your Vista story. So we're going to start with a couple of tips and
Mío,
tricks.
es cuando nosotros hablamos
So
porque ya nos callan, porque no nos
let's see,
porque
Apollonia,
Pues
if you
no.
quién sabe, ya nos aventamos.
Entonces,
let me see if I got it. Okay, sorry about that. As you begin to write your story today and when you leave this webinar, there are a few tips and tricks you should think about. So first, it's important to start by asking yourself a question. Why is this story important to tell? What do I hope to accomplish? For your storytelling to be successful, it's important that your story matches your strategy. Next, it is important to know who your audience is. So, people are not one size fits all. So really try to hone in on the group of people you're trying to target and consider what words, visuals, mediums, et cetera, will be the best to reach your audience. Next, we would say keep your story brief and general. People won't remember more than a few key details from your story. So keep your story to no more than 5 minutes, and oftentimes maybe shorter, depending on the means in which you are delivering it. And then, of course, number 4, this may sound obvious, but it can't be stressed enough. Practice, 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 and practice, practice, practice. Justine shared her story very well in the video, right? Sounded great that we watched, but it took time to rehearse. So feel free to ask fellow VISTA members if you have any at your site, or, just friends, family members, staff, or colleagues at your organization, if they would be willing to listen and provide you feedback. It may seem like an awkward ask, but everyone gets it. You need to practice in order to perfect this. So don't feel bad in asking your supervisor if you could practice for a bit. Also, you can watch or listen to other storytellers you like, and explore what about them stands out. That can sometimes be fun. You can find stories in your community, but also in podcasts, books, TV, movies, and more. So think about how a speaker gets your attention, and who gets you motivated to do something, and try to learn from those tactics and incorporate them into your own story. And as a VISTA member, you take on some of America's toughest challenges because you believe in this work. So the story you share should show this belief in what is possible in our communities. So think about what kind of emotion you want to share, as well as create or share in your audience, and make sure you are conveying the appropriate emotion and beliefs. So with that said, going through a few tips and tricks, now it is going to be your turn. We want you to take a look at the second page of your worksheet. We'll drop a link in the chat again. And we want you to start drafting a moment, challenge, and outcome that you can turn into a story. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to work on this to get your moment, challenge, and outcome. You should be close to page 2 on the handout. And we'll come back in just a second. All right, great job, everyone. Thanks for taking that time, and hopefully, you're wrapping up, or at least getting a good start or a good draft of your moment, challenge, and outcome. Eventually, you can use what you start today to really build out your story further into one of the different formats we discussed, and that you chose in that poll as well. Like a blog post, social media post, a 5-minute service story, and the one-on-ones those were the 3 big ones. And we'll talk a little later about how to adapt your story for different formats. But before that, I am going to pass it to Tamika.
Thanks, Chris. All right. Now you will have a chance to share your story and connect with other VISTA members across the country. We invite you to share whatever you have so far, whether it's a brainstorm or a story outline with a small group of fellow VISTA members. So, if you're in a place where it is convenient to do so, we're going to ask you to join us in turning on your video. And so, in a moment, you'll be assigned to a breakout room with a handful of VISTA members in your groups. Each member will have 1 minute to share their story so far. We encourage you to assign a timekeeper in your group so that everyone has a chance to share. After you finish, your group can ask questions and discuss next steps for your story. So if you need closed captioning, please let us know, and we're going to probably assign you to a group, but then reassign you to the breakout room 1. And so if you can send us a message or use the raise hand feature to let us know that you need closed caption, we'll appreciate that. And if you are having any tech issues in your breakout room, such as you're the only person there, where our goal is to try to get around 4 people per breakout room. But if say you only 1 or 2 people, please send us a message to the host and we're happy to assist you. So looking at the time right now, I'm going to give you until about 10 minutes until the hour. So you'll have around until 3 3:50 if you're Eastern, and I'm in Central Time, so 2:50. So about, we were looking at the time, you have about 13 minutes, so a couple of minutes to share, do some intros, then hop into your 1-minute stories, and then give some feedback. So I'm gonna go ahead and allow us to go ahead and go into our breakout rooms right now, so you all can get started. All right, I think everyone should be returning at this point. And thank you for sharing with everyone in the small group. We hope that you had great discussions. Hope you enjoyed sharing with each other. We invite you to continue these conversations on Vista Connect and in future training. So thank you so much for taking time to share with each other and hopefully give each other feedback. All right. So we want to share another point about the importance of listening and being able to pivot. Some of our best stories come through listening to the stories of others and learning about who the people are that are talking to or reaching out to. So we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Often a VISTA member, it can help to use that ratio when meeting with a volunteer or community member that is interested in helping your organization. So take the time to listen to others, to ask questions, so you can better tell your story and make your ask, one that is based on what you've learned from others. This can also mean preparing multiple stories that you can use to best reflect what your audience cares about. If one of the stories you have prepared does not work for the person you're talking to based on what they've shared with you, then it is important to have a few additional story options in your back pocket. It might also be important to have a few different strategies to tell your story so you can reach people in a variety of ways. So that means you might want to take the one story you worked on today and adapt it to another format. So up until now, we have talked about storytelling from the perspective of getting people to take some type of action based on what you are approaching them about. But sharing your Vista story can also help you communicate with personal accomplishments. Some opportunities when you might want to share your story of your personal accomplishments include maybe when you're networking, when you're writing bullet points from your resume during an interview. You can also use the story framework when learned today to communicate a moment, a challenge, and the outcome you help create. So if you like more tips on communicating your VISTA accomplishments on your resume or in an interview, we recommend checking out a learning path with webinar recordings that we'll post in the chat. All right, turn it back over to you, Chris, now.
Thanks, Tamika. So as we wrap things up, yeah, thanks, Christina. If we could continue on to the next slide, thanks. Um, If you want to learn more, here we do have some tools that we recommend you review for further study. We'll share the links in the chat to some helpful toolkits. There's one from the Rockefeller and Ford Foundations, as well as some great examples to get you started in nonprofit storytelling. We just shared those in the chat, so feel free to take a look. But these links are also on the final page of your webinar handout, so you can reference the handout to access those as well. And I just want to thank you all for your participation today. We do have one more chat question here, and I know you've been participating throughout with poll questions, chat questions, the breakout groups, working on the handout. So we appreciate it, and we want to celebrate what we have accomplished today and beginning to draft our Vista stories, but also make a plan for how we want to apply what we have learned in the future. So for this chat question, we're going to ask you to just take a quick moment. What are your next steps to further develop your Vista story? So like what additional work do you need to do, and where do you plan to use your story at your Vista project? This will just be quick, quick chat questions, but I want to hear from you. Give it, Corey. Yes. Next steps. Always practice, practice, practice. Yes, Corey. I love it. Developing an infographic and newsletter, says Rose. More on practice from Will. Let's see, Jody. A list that I developed to further develop my business story in the new year, trying to get through the end of your fundraising with my organization. Yeah, now's a busy time, I imagine, Jody. Yes. And then determining the if it's social media or article, build partnerships. Love it, love it. Thanks everyone. Keep them coming. Keep these coming. And I'm very excited about the next steps that you have shared and that you are sharing. Miriam says maybe with my city council colleagues where I serve to check with them. I love it. Yes. Okay, so we just have a couple of moments left, and to wrap up, we have a final review question related to today's topic. I think y'all are going to do really well on this. So a poll is now appearing on your screen, and we ask you to take a moment to select the correct answer, and we'll just pause we'll give it about 30 seconds so everyone can get a chance to respond. Okay, looks like almost half have responded. A little bit more. I know many of you were mid typing in the chat. So yeah, no, we're hitting you every which way with these polls and chat questions. We appreciate your participation. Um, okay, we'll give it another 5 seconds just in case you haven't submitted yours. Looks like maybe 2/3 have. And all right, let's close it out and take a look at the answer. So 82% of you got this correct. Great job. And the correct answer here is C. So which of the following are elements of a well-structured story? We want to reiterate that moment, that challenge, and the outcome. So thanks all for the 82% who got it correct. For those who didn't, happy to chat because I don't think your answers are necessarily wrong. The setup and what you're passionate about can contribute to a story and the problem and what you plan to do about it as well. But we focused on the moment, challenge, and outcome today. So thank you so much. We'll just shift gears real quick to ask that you offer your feedback on this webinar. We ask that you just take a moment or two to give us feedback. We constantly review this content. We try to make it better for new AmeriCorps members, and we want to know how we can improve it or what worked, what didn't, how the breakout rooms went, or if you just want to share, future topics that you're interested in. We read all of these and we take them seriously. So please, thank you in advance for sharing any feedback. And with the session wrapping up, we're gonna actually skip Q&A. We had 0 questions in the queue, so we did give a little more time in the breakout rooms due to that. But if you do have a question, we are happy to answer. You could still submit in the Q&A, and we could try to answer now or follow up afterwards. But as we wrap up, just a friendly reminder that we'll post the recording and handout used today on the Vista campus later this week, probably tomorrow. To access the materials, you just need to log in and locate the learning path. Once logged in, you can click on Catalog, where you see the red square pop up. That will bring you to the learning paths available. Today's webinar will be posted under the My Professional Development Learning Path, and you can either search for that or you can filter search by members. And if it's your first time accessing the learning path, you'll have to enroll and join it, which is just a couple of quick steps. And once you've joined the learning path, you can browse through all the available recorded webinars at your leisure. And also, as Tamika was referencing earlier, we do want to plug the Vista Connect on the Vista campus, where you can go to reach out to your AmeriCorps colleagues if you want to continue this conversation. You can use the topics forum to discuss best practices, share resources, connect with your colleagues to share your experiences, maybe share your stories and get feedback. You can practice there as well. So if you want to continue with the conversation with a colleague that you met or heard from in the chat or breakout rooms today, head on over to Vista Connect after the webinar and start up a topic. All right, but thank you so much for attending this webinar, and we hope you can join us for our next webinar. It'll be titled Analyzing and Reporting Data. We have a bit of a break, so this will be in February 26th, starting at 3 p.m. We'll share registration details by email once available, and we'll also post the registration link to the Vista campus calendar, where you can always access registration links. We hope everyone has happy holidays, and thank you so much for serving as an AmeriCorps VISTA member, and thank you for your participation today as well. Y'all were great. This will conclude our webinar. If you do want to pop in a question, we'll hang out for just a couple of moments, but otherwise feel free to disconnect, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Thanks all.